what Agile is.
Se mi alzo do fastidio alla regia.
Hi everyone, could I stand? Is it a problem? No, I would rather stand. And also, I would like to play a bit with post-it notes. After all, this is something that Agile coaches do. I must say that Agile perhaps is a word which is being used even too often. I'm not even happy with the word Agile. Lots of people come to me and they say, can we do this in an Agile way? And I say I know nothing about Agile. What I deal with is agility, because after all, it isn't like a screwdriver. It isn't like a tool. Agility is something different. Agility is a personal quality. It is something which somehow must be internalized. It must become part of us. It must be a way of being. There are frameworks, there are certain things, and we need experts. But this can be learned very quickly. And we are dealing here with people who professionally are used to complexity, to a much greater complexity than what we are talking about here. So perhaps we need to work on something else. And we have to consider what is usually recognized as being as a coach in literature. If you look this up on the internet, if you look around, you always find that a coach is someone who tells you how things are to be done. But here we are to make an additional effort. In our company, we must do something different. We must see if we can truly be agile and if this agility can bear value. Now, value is a fundamental word, and whenever I deal with people in the room, this is the first word I write on the board, value. If we don't bring value, if we don't create value, we're not being agile. We could do anything, but unless we create a value, what we do is pointless. We're not being agile. So this must be very clear from the beginning. You only have agility if you create value. Agility is something more pervasive. It is inside people. It is not outside people. It is not just a behavior or a way of doing things. So in the end, ultimately, we generate value, each and all of us, on an everyday basis. We bring value, we create value whenever we make a good choice. And you might think it's fairly obvious that good choices should be made. Yes, it sounds obvious, it sounds simple, but it's far from easy. It's difficult to get it wrong. There's so many variables. There is such a high volatility. Things are so complex that it is always not easy to make good choices. So that's why we need some support. We need a different way to do things. We need a different approach. What used to work until yesterday doesn't work today. I've been working for Enel for over 30 years, and I've seen this, I witnessed this firsthand. What used to work in the past does not work today. We are good at what we do, but the world around us is changing. So if we are to operate effectively, we must do things differently from the way we did them in the past. We must relearn and learn not from the past, but from the future. This is truly interesting because we must look at what we want to become and not what we used to be in the past. What we used to be doesn't work any longer. In my first 23 years, I worked for a power plant. I was head of team for many years in Brindisi. And when I joined this power plant in Brindisi, at the time, this was a wonderful adventure for me. When I joined the power plant, it was at the very beginning. We just had a boiler. It was being constructed as I started doing my job there. So it was a wonderful adventure. I could see the plant being developed, and I was working alongside the people who were working to construct, to build the power plant, and it was a wonderful place where to be. Now, of course, things have changed enormously, and I will come back on this at the end of my presentation. So to make good choices. That's one key point. The interesting thing about agility, something that really captured me, is that this is a way to be together with other people in a team, which highlights and enhances individual values. People are not being standardized there. On the contrary, we are using the specific talents that each individual has. And this means that incredible ideas can be generated. And I hope to be able to work with you in some of these rooms which are being created now, because I really want to show this in practice. It's truly a very interesting phenomenon. Participation here is rewarded because at the very beginning, in a squad, you have diversity. This is at the bottom. This is at the foundation. Diversity sometimes is seen as something of a problem. Sometimes we think it's a good thing to be all the same, to be homogeneous. But far from it, diversity is good. Diversity of talents means that we can tap every individual's qualities. Because of the very fact that people working together in the same room on a common objective, well, this is an opportunity for growth. Even if we were to fail, even if we were not to achieve our objective, we still would have learned a lot. And this is something that people say after their experience in the Agiail room, regardless of the result. Of course, it requires courage and perseverance. Why am I saying courage? Well, I think Simona mentioned this. There is something new here. In an Agiail room, in a squad, decisions are reached there and they are made by the members of the squad. We don't have managers telling us what to do. What we may say typically is that I have a dream, I want to get there. So how do we get there and how we can go about it? Well, this is something that you have to decide for yourselves. And it requires courage. In the past, we were not required to make these choices, to make these decisions. We were told what to do. Now, things have changed. It is the team which decides, and it is fundamental, of course, to have a vision, but it is the team which decides how to get there. And this requires perseverance, because at the beginning, this is a rather difficult process. In the end, the team will mature and grow, but at the beginning, before this growth, the team doesn't have very clear ideas, sees everything in a very nebulous, confused way. And if you think about it, this is our experience in our everyday job as well. So we need to be bold, we must be courageous, we must shoulder the responsibility of what we want to achieve. So we want to persevere, because it's perfectly okay to get it wrong the first time, and sometimes you could actually get hurt in the process. Never mind, you should never give up, you should be unwavering in your efforts. You must always persevere, you must always go forward without ever giving up. As I said, agility is not an instrument. It is not a procedure. It is not something that you learn from the outside. In my view, it is instead what is truly needed in this company, namely diffuse, pervasive and emerging leadership. A leadership that is found in each and all of us. Emerging because it's bottom up. It comes up from the bottom and brings value to the whole organization. So this is the type of approach which is required, and it's a highly satisfying approach as well. To be agile means that you are able to look at the facts, not applying procedures, not doing things because this is what you were told to do by your superior. This is what I'm doing because I was told to do this. No, I have to look at the facts. I have to look at the situation. It's a different way of seeing things. And we must be able, first and foremost, to recognize value. Value is the only variable And we must become obsessed with value. If there is no value, there is no agility. And if there is no value, we don't have a company, we don't have an organization or a corporation. We must get value out. You must be able to squeeze every last drop out of our lemon, if you like. That's how you can create value. I come from plants. I am a man who comes from power generation. I spent a few years out of power generation, but not too far. I worked on industrial risks, and I was still focusing on power generation. Then I spent some time in global trading, but I did follow up plant-related projects anyway. So to be honest, to see power generation as the pride and glory of the company, as it used to be when I joined Enel. We were the feather in the cap. Power generation was the most important thing in Enel at the time, and now it's losing ground. It's as if it lost importance, and I feel bad about this. I feel really upset. It's as if we were to be blamed about something, or as if we had not been able to give everything. There is an African tale that comes to my mind. When I first listened to this, when I first heard this tale, I thought it was very thought-provoking. It comes from Kenya, this tale. It's about a woman who has to take water to the village using 2 containers from the river to the village and back and forth every single day. But when she went back to the village, she only brought 1 container and a half because one of the 2 containers had a leak, and she would lose some of the water on the way from the river to the village. And finally, this container speaks up to the woman and says, "Look, I'm really embarrassed, I'm really ashamed because I'm not as good as my other partner. I cannot carry the full load of water. I cannot do the job the same as the other container." And the woman smiles and says, "Come on. Have you noticed that on the right-hand side of the path there are some beautiful flowers? Have you ever realized this? I planted these flowers myself. I have sowed the seeds and I have tried to grow these flowers because I knew you. And I knew you would leak some water, and I knew that this would make it possible for me to grow flowers. And without you, there wouldn't be these flowers." So I was very struck by this tale because essentially we can see that sometimes there are faults or maybe things that may be seen as problems or faults or flaws, and yet they could instead be crucial. They could have a very great importance. They are not flaws, they are not problems, they are talents. So perhaps a thermal generation now is precisely like this container with a leak. You may think that it's losing value. You may think, watching it from the outside, that it's losing or it has lost value. Yes, it is. It does have a leak. However, the woman is like Enel. It's like our corporation. Our corporation understands that there are problems in thermal generation, but it's doing its utmost to transform it into a strength. To sow for the future is one of the duties of our company. This is what we expect. To suggest a new approach such as agility could be an attempt, could be a way to approach this problem, to address this problem. I don't know whether it's going to be the final solution. I don't know whether it's going to be instrumental in turning a weakness into strength, but it's a good attempt. And I think that thanks to your participation, thanks to your cooperation, we could at least try. We could at least see if by using agility we can bring value, because value here is the recurrent word, is the key word. Thank you.